Thunderbirds heard about me. They said, hey, we hear you're doing an air show with an airplane that's not used in air shows. I said, you're right. Squirreliest thing in the Air Force inventory. They said, we want to interview you. I went through a 6-hour interview with the Thunderbirds. And at the end of the 6 hours, the leader of the team walked over, stuck his hand out to me, said, congratulations, you made it. I said, fantastic. Get to fly with the cream of the crop. But it was not to be. They said, no, we need all-weather pilots. Cox can't go. That knocked me out of flying with the team. I said, that ripped it. That did it. The Air Force has been asking for this. They're going to get it. Plan B. And I executed Plan B. I sent in my resignation knowing that would shape up the Air Force. And they signed it. I was a civilian overnight trying to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. So I headed out for the West Coast to fly with the airlines, knowing they would be ecstatic to get a hold of the hottest thing in the skies. Wrong. They loved me as long as I was talking to them on the phone. They said 2,400 hours of high-performance fighter time, test pilot, air show pilot, never had an accident. I said, that's it. Kind of guy we're looking for. We're mailing you an application today. Well, I had already discovered I had a problem as far as the airlines were concerned. Perhaps some of you have already figured out what that problem is. I said, before you waste a stamp, what are the height requirements for flying with your airline? They said 5 feet 8. I said, what a coincidence. That happens to be my goal. A goal I am obviously still working on. People back there, he didn't look that short. Watch this. That's why I work on platforms. Anyway, I tried my best to convince them I wasn't short. I just wound tight. Well, I joined this big sales company, sold for a year. End of the year, looked at what I'd earned. I said, not bad. I earned more selling than I'd ever earned as a test pilot on hazardous duty pay, and I didn't have to worry about getting killed that year in selling. Well, I can't say that either. There were a couple of customers that year I wasn't real sure about. I wasn't into customer service like I am now, but I thought, this is a good thing. The company came to me and said, I want you to take over the top office out of our 36-office chain. Well, I could hardly wait to get back to that top office because that's also where I'd been a brand new salesperson the first year out of the Air Force. You could not even begin to imagine how those top people in that #1 office, who remembered me as the brand new guy from the year before, the rookie from right out of the Air Force, now welcome me back as their boss. Maybe you could imagine. They hated me with a passion. I kept saying to them, don't think of me as the boss. Just think of me as a friend who's always right. You can imagine how well it worked. I took that office from first place. You're ahead of me. To 36th out of 36 offices in 3 months' time. Totally wiped that son of a gun out. I knew I was in trouble. About that time, my boss showed up at my doorway. He said, I made a mistake by making you a manager, and I feel it only fair to let you know I'm now looking for your replacement. I said, now right there is not only the shortest, but the finest motivational seminar I have ever attended. I'm going to have to learn how to do this. He said, my boy, you don't have much time. I said, you have no idea how motivated I am. So I went to work on me, not them. 120 days later, we were back up to #1. We could hardly wait to get to #1. Why? Well, so we could say we're #1, and also so we could all go like that. Oh. Now, if you'd been charting the production in that office from before I took over, it was up at #1. I took over, bombed out 9 days later, 120 days later, back up to #1. With that kind of an attitude, you know what would have happened to that productivity line? It would have plateaued right back out where it had been before, and you'd be listening to somebody else here this afternoon instead of me. We started talking about that phenomenon. What is that thing where you get up to a certain way you're doing your job and then quit getting better at it? Where can that happen? Well, at low productivity in any job. Anywhere else? Yeah, it can happen at medium productivity in any job. Anywhere else? Even in high productivity, we can plateau out. We started talking about this self-imposed barrier, and that's really what it was. By definition, self-imposed barrier is not a wall around your life. It's just the margin of your life where you haven't written anything yet. Good is the enemy of best. Best is the enemy of better. We get good at something, we have a tendency to say, what? Why do I need to get to be best at this? I'm already good at it. Should we happen to get to be best at what we do, then the tendency is to say, what? Why do I need to get any better? I'm already number one. That's when you need to get better more than any other time. Why? When contentment in the way you're doing your job sets in, progress stops. After we had plateaued out, I called each one of my salespeople in individually, and here's what I said to them. Privately, door closed, individually. I said, I don't want you to worry about breaking anybody else's record. I just want you to worry about breaking your own on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly basis. Not necessarily in that order, but once and the reason I said that to them, I said, I don't want you to shoot for somebody else's record. It's too hard to keep track of it to see if you're making progress. But they knew what their best day was. They knew what their best week was. They knew what their best month was. And if they didn't know, I helped them figure it out. Well, you can imagine once they saw their own records, some of them even low records, starting to break, you can imagine what happened to the energy in the organization. It went sky high. We broke office records, company records, industry records. I must tell you about my friend Hal Needham. Thank God he never shared his dream with me, his vision. He didn't do that. Thank God, because otherwise I might have poured cold water on it. What if he would have said to me, Denny, someday I want to work on a project with a friend of mine. He's a butcher, meat cutter. He has no formal training in engineering, but his hobby is engineering. We want to build a rocket-powered car that will break the sound barrier on the ground. I would have said, good thing you brought that stupid cockamamie idea to me first. I'm one of the world's foremost authorities on high-speed machinery, ultra close to the ground. There ain't no way you're ever going to get a car supersonic. Rubber would come off the tires hundreds of miles an hour before you ever got to the sound barrier. He'd probably said something smart like, me and my meat cutter friend, we've already talked about that. No rubber, just all metal wheels. That's it. I said, come on, at those, forget it. You've been falling off too many horses. A few years after this, he called me one day and he said, Denny, it's been a while. I said, hey, let's get together. He told me about how he had become Hollywood's top stuntman. He told me about how he had written Smokey and the Bandit, and at the time it was tied for 4th all-time box office hit with Sound of Music. You never thought you'd hear those two titles in the same sentence. He said, I got something I want you to be a part of next week. I said, what's that, Hal? He said, I got a friend who's a butcher. Hobby of engineering. We want to built a rocket-powered car. We were going to make an assault on the sound barrier. I said, you're putting me on. He said, you should see the car. 40 feet long, twice as long as a normal car. Only 18 inches wide. Runs on 3 all-metal wheels. I said, of course, rubber would come off at those incredible speeds. Give me credit for picking up a little faith in what human beings can do. I said, we'll be there. Where? He said, Edwards Air Force Base at the dry lake bed there, where you've seen so many great stories unfold there. Well, the next week, my wife and I stood out there on that dry lake bed. She was over here on my left. A guy by the name of Chuck Yeager stood right over there on my right. Guy that broke the sound barrier in the air for the first time. He was very much involved in that. And Guinness Book of Records says, Air Force radar tells you broke the sound barrier. You hear a boom, you're into the record books as breaking the sound barrier first. We stood out there and we watched Stan Barrett, the driver of the car. They had just told him that the speed of sound that day was 730 miles an hour. It varies by temperature. Put that into perspective, that's 500 miles per hour faster than you see the cars coming down the straightaway at Indianapolis on Memorial Day. 500 miles an hour faster than that. And Stan Barrett said something that maybe we can all relate to. He pointed down that long dry lake bed. He said, out there is my barrier. Out there is my nemesis. Out there is my enemy. I can't see it, but it's there. And he walked over to get into the car. It took him 20 minutes to get into the car, and he wanted to get into the car. It would have taken longer to get me in there, not just because I'm whiter than Stan Barrett. I would not want to be encapsulated in a... Encapsulated? Yeah. Once you're in, they close the canopy and they bolt it down with about 100 bolts. When do you get out? When they come unbolt you. I don't want to be encapsulated in anything. They told Stan it's going to take 3 runs to break the sound barrier. 1 run per weekend. 3rd weekend, he should punch through. He said, I'll risk my life 3 times for that. We're about ready to watch run number 16, and he hadn't made it yet. But they started the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom. With a rocket engine, you get total thrust instantaneously. It doesn't build up. You got it all at once. As Stan described the previous run, he said, it's a whole lot of gone in a hurry. And that little red rocket car shot down that long dry lake bed over the curvature. Couldn't see the car anymore, but we could hear it. We could see a rooster tail of sand and dust being kicked 50 feet in the air. When he got through with the run, they checked the speed. He didn't make it. But he did drive 637 miles an hour, faster than any other human being had traveled across the face of the earth at that time. And when he got out, he said something else maybe we can also relate to. And here's what he said. He said, you know, every time I take that car up to a new higher speed, I say, that's it. Can't do any more than what I just did. Can't do my job any better than what I've already done. That's as fast as I can drive. But he said, you know, I crawl back in the next weekend and find out that's not the case. Next weekend, they started the countdown one more time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.